Use code Datto10 at logi.gg/Datto to save money on your next order from Logitech. Links are in the description. So people seemed to like the idea of my how people actually do Crota's End video. So now I'm back with another on literally every other raid in the game and how people are actually doing them nowadays. This video is not going to go over the actual mechanics of each encounter. It is not a new player guide or anything like that. It is simply meant to be a refresher or a video to use to catch up on what people are currently doing if you find yourself in a raid group. There are 3 damage strategies in the game that make up 95% of damage strategies used during boss fights in raids: Rockets, Linears, and Leviathan's Breath. If you want to be an LFG damage-dealing legend, having a good Rocket, Gjallarhorn, a good Linear, and Leviathan's Breath with the Catalyst is going to cover 95% of your bases. A good Sword is going to be the other 4%, with the last 1% being some random stuff that we'll discuss. Check out my video on how to do damage that I uploaded recently for more information on these strategies. For all Master Mode raids, simply use a weapon of the element that is surging or whatever weapons are overcharged in order to take advantage of the free damage buff. For example, if Solar is overcharged and the fight calls for a rocket, use a Solar rocket. Not too complicated. Most Master Mode fights are not really too different to their normal mode fights. It's just mainly that everything hits a lot harder. Let's start with 5-year-old Last Wish. Last Wish hasn't really seen a big shift in how people do certain fights, mainly because there isn't a lot of freedom to change how the fights work. The strategies from 4 to 5 years ago are all pretty much the same because there's really only one way to do encounters. When it comes to Kali, some people utilize a strategy with Anarchy or Necrotic Grip and Witherhoard, where you can keep Kali tethered to the ground, allowing your team to just wail on her. See my Last Wish weapon rolls video for more information on that. If you don't want to do that strategy, or no one in your team knows how to do that strategy, then doing the fight normally is the same as it was all those years ago. Spread out onto the different plates, step on the plates in the right sequence, etc., etc. Damage-wise, you can do pretty much whatever you want here, although I would opt for precision weapons because Kali and Shirochi, by extension, have bonus crit multipliers on their heads. Using Divinity here is actually bad because of that bonus multiplier. Linears, Sleeper, Leviathan's Breath, these are all good options. You can use Rockets too, it's fine. Shirochi is also the same as it was because there is zero nuance to this fight. You either do the mechanics in the way they were designed, or you fail. When it comes to the puzzle room, continue to assign 4 players to a different number, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go from top to bottom and left to right when it comes to which plates people need to stand on. My team adjusts the positioning of the plates based on which wall has the puzzle. So if the puzzle is on the left wall, the plate callouts are based on you facing that left wall, and then the center wall, and then the right wall. If people need to swap, you just call out your number and ask someone to cover for you. Damage can be almost anything you want because you don't really need that much damage to get from phase to phase, and we are 5 years power creeped, so this shouldn't be a big deal. Put on something decent, you'll be fine. Morgeth is still the same as well, a balancing act of making sure you're getting Taken Strength stacked to 2. Split the party 3 and 3, left and right. I like to have whoever picks up the first Taken Blight that starts the fight also pick up a second one on that first wave that comes out, so you know exactly who is going to get stuck in that tornado, so that way everybody knows what to expect. After that, it tends to just be a free-for-all when it comes to picking up the second wave of Blights. Just make sure one person does not pick up any, so that they can grab the Eye of Riven to cleanse the second person who gets caught. Damage, again, it's whatever you want. Bring a decent power weapon besides rockets so you don't blow yourself up. Aim it, shoot it. You'll one cycle. The vault strategy is still the same. The callouts might have changed, but it's still the same encounter. I still have people asking me how this lock mechanic works, so I'm going to try very quickly to explain. 3 people stand on the 3 plates to reveal the 3 symbols on their respective lock. Any person can be first. I just start with the stairs side lock first. You read out the symbol in the middle, and then one of the other 2 locks is going to have that symbol on their left or on their right. If it's on the left, that lock is Penumbra. If it's on the right, it's Antumbra. That player then reads their symbol in their middle, and then someone else is going to have that one. And then you rinse repeat until you have all 3 positions. Technically, you only need 2 of the 3 because you can just do those 2 first, and then the final one will always be whatever it ends up being.
Okay, if we mess up, it's
All right,
okay.
dragon,
Angel.
breathing fire to the right.
On my right. I got boring bird.
That's my left.
Oh, okay.
Angel, you're grabbing the thing, right?
It's coming back.
What does that mean?
Weapon-wise, there's no bosses, so just use whatever you want. When it comes to Riven, I imagine 99% of teams are just cheesing this fight, aka clipping some toenails. I am not really up to date on this strategy. I'm guessing it's just a lot of Lament sword spamming her feet with a tractor cannon and a well or a bubble. So if you are going to do that, just have a Lament or Lament equivalent weapon ready. If by some miracle you are not cheesing this encounter, then bring a linear fusion. Those are totally fine. This strategy has remained the same here. Split 3 and 3, go do your thing on your sides, meet in the middle, you get it. Risk of combat death here is very low. It's basically only if you let the scions get out of hand. The finale doesn't have too many changes either. There's probably going to be a lot of people trying to launch the ball holder 1,000 meters away with a sword swipe to make things go faster. I'd really just recommend not doing that because, yeah, it's funny, but it's just probably going to cause a wipe if not everyone knows that you're going to do that. The biggest thing here is just pay attention and just make sure you're picking up the ball and making sure you're not too close when the aura is closing. Literally just pay attention and you're going to win. Let's move to what I imagine is one of the less frequently run raids in Garden of Salvation. I have a feeling Bungie is going to bring this place back to life soon with some red borders and revamped weapons, so let's get caught up. The first 2 encounters do not demand any specific loadouts. There's no bosses. The strategies for both encounters also remain the same as they were. The first encounter can maybe have a little variance with regards to how quickly people rotate to the next section of the map, but it's not really anything to go worry about or go in depth on. The first person to grab a cube can immediately leave for the next section if they want, but if you all want to stay as a group to do the leapfrog together, that's also totally fine. It's tough to make this and the second encounter really go that much faster, with the second encounter being as painfully slow as you remember. The third encounter also doesn't have many changes. The babysitting team still does exactly the same thing, but when it comes to Team Gambit, you can either do a 10-10-10 moat strategy or a more conservative 5-10-10-5 strategy. The reason 10-10-10 gets iffy is because sometimes the Vex goblins that spawn by the relay will just sprint there for some reason, meaning if you're slow to the relay with your moats, you're just going to have to do another set of moats anyway, since the Vex are going to sacrifice themselves, or worse, too many are going to get there, and then you're just going to wipe. I would advise having your first runner be someone with some bonus movement tech, or some bonus movement speed, to alleviate this 10-10-10 strategy problem. Damage on the boss nowadays is just going to be linears with Divinity to make the crit spot bigger. I guess Xeno is fine here as well. Leviathan's Breath also works, but there's some wonky stuff with it that pushes the boss around in a weird way, which could mess up everybody else's shots. I think you can also use rockets. Those are fine. If you are going to drop a well or a ward, though, make sure it is not directly next to the relay, but rather several meters up in the alley, as there's going to be a wall that spawns in shortly after damage starts, which will block your shots if you're standing too far back. Also, if you're dropping a ward, don't drop it in the middle of the lane. Drop it to the side, you maniacs. The Sanctified Mind has had multiple strategies in its life, and I honestly couldn't tell you which is more popular right now, so I'm just going to quickly explain both. For gathering moats, teams have historically done either 10-10-10, with one person on each side entering a portal at the same time, or 15-15, with 2 people entering the same portal on a side. You need 30 moats with no Vex sacrifices to activate both relays. The 10-10-10 strat kind of breaks up the team into 2 groups of 3, whereas the 15-15 strat keeps the entire group of 6 solidified. The benefit to 15-15 is that 2 players can kill enemies faster and safer, and you spawn fewer Cyclops in total, not to mention having a few extra moats to work with. The benefit to 10-10-10 is that you can move a little bit faster, but has slightly higher risk as a result if you mess up. The most important thing is just making sure people are on the same page and make sure you are collecting all possible modes. When it comes to the damage strategy, you should probably be using rockets with a 2-break strategy, 2-break being where you tether to both Vex relays so that you get more time to damage the boss. 1-break should only be used if the entire team is all using 5 enhanced relay defender mods in every single armor piece, which I'm guessing basically never happens. I'm guessing teams are doing 1-break simply because they are not capable of making multiple breaks happen. If you want 2 breaks, try to assign roles ahead of time so that people know where to stand as soon as you need to stand there. Also, if you are not in the team that is doing tethering of any kind, stay out of the way as much as possible. If you do happen to find yourself in a tether and you don't have something super urgent to be doing, it's better to just stay in the tether until whatever you're doing with the tether is complete versus trying to leave it and then it tries to find a new target and then people are confused on the order and all that kind of stuff. Just stay in the tether if you happen to be in it. Moving to Deepstone Crypt, this place is where I feel like some of the biggest innovations have happened compared to my guide all those years ago. The security encounter is still unchanged, although there is a strategy that allows for multiple people in the bottom area, speeding up the fight. A little bit illegal. 2 people sword dash into the downstairs room as the operator buff is picked up, and then you pass both the operator and the scanner buff downstairs. Both people downstairs work in tandem to find the things that they need to shoot, making it go a little bit faster and reducing the need to juggle buffs. I don't think this is the de facto strat right now, it's just more of a fun trick to pull off. However, the timing on this is really tight. You have to swipe as the operator is grabbed, really precise, and messing it up even once is a time loss. So if you don't know how to do this already, it's not a big deal. If you're not doing this, then the fight is the same as usual, passing around the scanner to people, just, move quickly. Xenophage is most commonly used to blow up the containers, although I've also heard of Bastion working as well. Just hold down Xeno and shoot until the thing explodes. If you do the fight normally, then operator should wait before going downstairs until the first 2 nodes are found with the scanner buff, just to give you a little bit of extra time. The Atrax strategy nowadays involves all 6 players using Parasite and one-off supers in order to bust Atrax down in one go. Parasite requires 20 stacks to deal the most damage, so make sure everyone gets to kill stuff to stack it up. Don't hog the kills. Once you're at 20, stop killing stuff until everybody else has 20. You should start by sending 4 people to the top level, keep 2 on the bottom. Once people have their stacks and the servitors downstairs are killed, the remaining 2 people downstairs should take the elevator up. Then with all 6 people, you kill the final servitors and you start damage. If done properly, all of that damage should be more than enough to take out Atrax in one go. Then, for a final stand, a Titan with Thunder Crash using Curus deals enough damage to take out Atrax in one shot. So try to give them the scanner buff so that way they can just T-Crash immediately. If you don't have a T-Crash, then just, do it normal. Nothing really changes in the third encounter. You can't really make it go too much faster. There are no special tricks. Just do the same thing, grab a machine gun, you're fine. Taniks also doesn't have many changes other than rockets being the dominant damage strategy. I imagine most teams have shifted to doing all 4 bombs at the same time though, which means your operator and suppressor need to be on the ball with removing the purple cages from people and suppressing Taniks so that you can dunk those bombs. There's nothing wrong with doing 2 and 2, but people have much more experience in this fight nowadays, and the 4-bomb strategy has definitely become more normal. It's where you blow up all 4 of his extremities to get all 4 bombs at the same time, instead of doing 2 and then 2. Other than that, the fight's the same. Next up, we have Vault of Glass, and I would say this raid is still pretty much the same overall with no significant strategy changes. You're going to use rockets on Templar, and you're going to use either rockets or linears on Atheon, but with Divinity if you're using linears. Atheon also has people utilizing grenade-based builds like Heart of Inmost Light, Arc Titan, and Verity's Warlock, so feel free to use those as well. Rockets could also maybe be used with Divinity for a larger hitbox. I don't think you really need it though. I find teams are dealing damage from the top left or right side stairs during Atheon, whichever portal people are exiting, as opposed to the floating middle island. all non-boss encounters should continue to use whatever the strongest ad clearing weapons are at the time that you're watching this, as of Season 22, and I assume 23. That's going to be wave frames and machine guns. Next up, we have Vow of the Disciple. The opening encounter doesn't have any bosses, so we don't need anything special. The first encounter does have multiple ways of doing the fight, though. You're going to split your team into 3 groups of 2, 1 group per totem, and then you can either assign 1 person from each group to run to the room that you need to run to, regardless of where it is, or you can have people who are closer to those rooms do the room that is needed, regardless of which totem has that symbol. I don't think which strategy you choose matters at all here. Just decide on one before you start the fight. For Caretaker, the damage strategy is going to be Leviathan's Breath or a precision weapon with Divinity. You basically need Divinity if you're using precision weapons, as trying to hit Caretaker in the crit spot is very annoying. You can also use rockets as well. You just need to be much more careful on the first phase. Make sure you're not rocketing yourself. The 3 respective mechanics in the fight, stunning Caretaker, running the room, and slaying ads, have not had any significant adjustments in how they are performed. For the Gauntlet encounter, you'll again want ad clear weapon rate. The fight remains the same otherwise, a very intense combat encounter. I don't think there are many, if any, cheesy methods out there of getting this fight done, thankfully. For Rolk, the non-damage phase is still the same when it comes to rotating the buffs around and dunking the things, you get it. For damage, I've heard of quite a few strategies. The first one is just all reliable linears and Divinity. You can replace linears with rockets as well, but then you're probably not going to need Divinity. I've also heard of sword-based strategies where you just stack up on Rolk and just beat on him with swords in a Well of Radiance. I haven't done that one myself. I don't know how relevant it is right now, but I've heard of it at the very least. Thunderlord, I imagine, is still also pretty solid for a 2-phase. I assume 2 phases is the norm, if not 3 phases. But again, you are definitely going to need Divinity for Thunderlord. I don't know where this vitriol for Thunderlord is from, but I will say it is a very safe way to get things done. King's Fall, mechanically, pretty set in stone. Not too many ways to deviate, so this place is also pretty much the same. For the opening and totems, anything goes in terms of weapons, machine gun, whatever. For the War Priest, the mechanic strategy is the same, but the damage positioning has changed a little bit, with Night Killers needing to compensate as a result. Many teams have shifted the positioning to the left or right sides of the stage on the same level as War Priest. The benefit of this is that you have a much clearer line of sight to the boss, and thus are going to miss way less often. The boss is also not going to strafe as much. The drawback is that it takes a little bit longer to get everybody into position, Night Killers need to go farther distances, and running to avoid the wipe mechanic takes a little bit more time. Given how long you get to deal damage in this phase though, you should be able to burn through pretty much all of your ammo, if not all of it. Golgroth is still pretty precision weapon focused, but teams are now having the tanks use tractor cannon, so that way the pit team can be purely focused on damage. As someone who pretty much tanks every single time, the plan for tractor cannon usage is to simply boop Golgroth whenever you are not the person being stared at. Then, when you take the gaze from your other tank, the other tank hits Golgroth with their tractor cannon, and you just go back and forth. If the pit team is able to use a weapon that has surrounded on it, you should try to do that, as it should be active a good amount of the time. Bait and switch is fine otherwise for you cataclysmic users out there. You can also use rockets on this fight if you want. They're very good here, but there's just always a chance that you can accidentally blow yourself up, or teammates are going to blow themselves up. So just be careful. Just be careful with that. Daughter's strategy is the exact same. Let the rockets fly. You could use Leviathan's Breath here if you want. You just need Divinity to make things a little easier for you. If you find the flinch to be incredibly annoying while you're doing damage, a grenade or two should take care of the enemies beneath you. For Oryx, precision weapons are going to shine. I've even heard of some teams bringing back Whisper of the Worm for this fight. My team has most frequently been using Leviathan's Breath. The crit is huge and very easy to hit. For those using a Shadow Shot for the debuff, aim the Shadow Shot at Oryx's hand, not his chest. If you aim at the chest, it's just not going to work. Finally, Root of Nightmares, the exact same thing. No major shifts. I actually haven't even run this place since I got all the red borders. First 2 encounters can just be whatever you want, with Planets and Nezarec both using rocket-based strategies. I cannot think of any major changes to pretty much any encounter or at the very least, anything significant enough that needs to be mentioned in this video. If you're looking for Crota, it's linked at the end. If you have any bonus tips that you would like to give for any one of the raids in this video, feel free to drop it in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.